There is a fifth decimal beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between first article inspection and part rejection, between science and superstition. It lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Within Tolerance Zone. This week on Within Tolerance, we will listen to an interview between Dylan and his business partner, Brad. So we are told. Is this really Brad, the business partner? Or is this Brad Southard, the knife maker? Or perhaps Dylan is interviewing himself and answering in his alter ego. It's for you to decide.
Well, thanks to Brad Southard for that fantastic intro. And as he said, we've got Brad, my business partner, Dunwell, on the podcast.
Yep, it's good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, anytime.
So the people want to know, lots of people ask, but without going into it, where's your background in manufacturing? How did you get into this? And then we'll kind of go into the story of how we met and started Protium.
So I guess it all starts, I was like 23, and I was actually working security. And I was actually doing security one day at the local community college. And I knew I didn't want to do security, like my whole life, or even 2 months more. So I was looking at their little pamphlet area, and they actually had a machine tool technology pamphlet. And I was like, that might be a good idea. That's something I've always been interested in, making things. I've always been pretty mechanical and handy my whole life. So I looked into that, started some classes, and that's where I met Dylan. So we started from there. And then actually almost immediately I got a job, my first machining job, which is actually my current machining job. So I started that, and then I've been doing that for 9 years now, 9.5 years. So that's where that all started. Not too much variation there, but
that's funny though. I didn't realize that you were looking at a pamphlet at the community college.
I did,
to go there. That's really funny. Yeah, and then we met in, I can't remember which class we had first together. Was it Mastercam?
Yeah, I think it was Tommy's class.
Yeah. And so that was, we both sat next to each other. We both rode motorcycles, both interested in cars. You had your 240 or 260 running at the time. And I had a 300 ZX for a short period of time that we bonded over.
What happened to that?
Fuck off.
Anyway.
Well, and then the story from there on how Protium started, I'm still trying to remember, and I've thought about it since then a lot, on like when the initial conversation started.
I remember. We were at Laguna Seca.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were at Laguna Seca. So you, me, and a couple other guys, and we were just kind of bullshitting, and we saw, I think it was a robo-drill on Craigslist.
Right. So I remember the robo-drill, but I couldn't remember when we started talking about this.
Right. And so I was like, man, what if we just got this and started our own company? And I think it was like $7,000 or $8,000.
I think it was even less than that. It was like $4,000 because it didn't have any parameters.
Right, it had no parameters.
And I was like, well, I've done that. I put parameters back into a FANUC. So,
but I mean, that was the initial thought, and then from there we got back. We called up on it, and I think it was already sold.
Yeah.
But that spark, it was started.
Well, we were both so disappointed by it being sold that we were like, well, shit, I guess there is something here. This is
exactly. There's something
more than
there,
a joke.
So, and then from there, we found the kitty. Actually we found the kitty before we did literally anything else. I actually paid for the Kitamura before I had a place to put it.
Yeah. And
so the company that had it, they stored it for, I think, at least a month for us. They weren't too happy about it. But I was struggling to find a shop to put it. And eventually I found a shop, and I had to go through all the rigmarole, had to get insurance, all that stuff, start business license, all that. And then, so we could finally get a spot for that. And then it sat for probably a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we had to run wiring, we had to get an air compressor, we had to do all that stuff, get tooling, everything else, get it sorted.
Yeah, there was nothing in there but the kitty.
No, yeah. I mean, it was actually quite dirty in there, and very poorly lit.
Yeah. As we're still finding out today.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I think you were in Japan when I figured out the communications
That's true,
to it for the first time, because I sent you a picture.
Yeah, you sent me a video of you uploading I think it was a message.
Yeah, it was
probably
like
an explicit message.
I'm the master of serial communications.
Yeah, yes, that's what it was. Because I mean, that thing it was the old RS format, and we had no idea how to communicate with a modern machine, USB. I think we used a converter.
Yeah. Well, we went through two different, because we didn't realize it had to be null modem.
Right.
So we bought the wrong one first, and we bought the right one. And then even then, we were still going through all of the demos of softwares online that we could use.
Right.
And I think it was Easy DNC that we settled on for a while.
We used.
And then we switched to that Fanuc one.
Right. There was one that we were using a trial mode of, and it worked great. But it only could use it like 10 times. But I actually figured out in the registry key, you could reset the amount of trial times. So we just kept doing that, like every 4 or 5 uploads, we just reset that and then start over at the top. But eventually we got a workstation that actually had a serial port on it. So that worked fine.
Yeah, that worked a lot better. And we still have that in the office, but not really using it.
No.
So that's kind of the origin story of Protium.
A brief background.
Yeah. Well, and it came out of like both of us sitting at Laguna. So we both went to Laguna Seca to work the track for, was that still MotoGP or was that World Superbike?
World Superbike.
Okay. And so you have a lot of downtime between races, or a lot of downtime between, laps even. You've got a couple minutes as they go around the track.
Yeah, we were working on the same corner.
Yeah. And it was both of us lamenting about like the shops we worked in and how
I could do better.
Yeah.
Look at this quality. Garbage.
Yeah. And so that was kind of the founding ethos, I guess, of the company was like better quality, better communication, all of that.
Which we've had the quality down, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The communication was pretty good too.
I think so. They seem to like us still.
Yeah,
most of them. Most part. So that's the backstory of how you got into manufacturing. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people want to know, as much as you can share, what do you do at your day job? And like what kind of machines do you run, or whatever you can share? So
when I started there was maybe 40 employees. It was actually a very small company at the time, and they had 4 Sharp 2412 CNCs. Some older basic Cat 40, slow but solid as a tank machines. And so I ran those. And eventually we decided that, we need a new machine. Let's do, a pallet changer. And I don't know if a ton of research was done, but we ended up with a big Doosan 560V. I think that's what it is. Big pallet changer. And this thing is just massive, just a humongous machine. And that has a 4th axis on one of the tables. So from there, unfortunately, we stuck with methods, I think, for the most part. So we moved on to a feeler, which we still have. And then from there, it's essentially we bought 5 Kiwas. 2 of them are pallet pools, and then 3 are just pallet changers, some horizontal Kiwas. They're 300 millimeter ones.
How'd that go?
I am not a fan, not even remotely a fan. They are in a constant state of disrepair and malfunction. And I don't know if it's a, product of the environment they're in. I mean, I'll admit, we're not the best at upkeep and maintenance there, but there's more to it than that. It just seems like there's hardly a night that goes by that there's not an issue with one of the machines.
Yeah, it's insane. One of the failure modes too, like the Z-axis.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Rail cover or whatever.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Breaking in the middle, like that's not
things that shouldn't break.
Fault. No.
Right? Yeah, maintenance or not. But that aside, we're actually starting to pick up into the BT30 game. So we actually picked up a robo drill for small parts, and then shortly after, we picked up an E+ robot cell robo drill. And shortly after that, we got a M200, which is now part of a Flex system attached to an S300. And just 2 weeks ago, we picked up 2 R450s. So a lot of growth, a lot of expansion. That shop is packed completely full. So it's getting a bit absurd at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I remember when you guys expanded, you're like, oh, I'm going to have room. And then that lasted like 6 months.
Right. Yeah. Once the Kiwas came in, they're not a small footprint. So they do take up a fair amount of space.
Yeah. Well, it's cool that you have that much experience though. Like I wish I had that much experience with varying different tapers and machines and all that.
Yeah. I guess, my experience is mostly in expansion and growth, not exactly part differences. Cause for the most part, we've been making the same parts more or less, a couple features since I started there, just much, much higher quantities now.
Right. Yeah, but you've got a lot of stainless experience that I don't have.
Right, yeah. We do mostly 303 stainless with, I'd say about 25% 316 and unfortunately some 304.
Yeah, but like Corey Deegan asked, one of his questions was what unique skills and qualities, and we can circle back to that. But one for sure that like made me very confident going into our partnership was like, oh, I've got a lot of aluminum experience. Right, I'm very hesitant in stainless. And you were like, I've done 0 aluminum. And it's all like all the stainless. 3 series stainless. Yeah. I was like, okay, well, like between those two, we can cover most orders.
Right. And then you're blown away with how slow I'm running things. And my mouth is on the floor watching these things at 300 inches a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. But my very limited experience was like blowing cutters up in stainless, trying to figure all speeds and feeds out. So it all worked out for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we can get into some questions from guests from Patreon.
Sure.
Ben at Fort Manufacturing had a whole bunch of questions. He wanted you to provide proof of humid status, which I think you've done. You sound different enough for me that people know.
For the most part, yeah.
You're at least a different person.
Dylan, he's a very apt guy, but he can't do all of this by himself. So I guess, I am here.
Yes. I for sure could not run the company by myself. We're both part-time, full-time employees, and it takes both of us. The thing that's really made, I think, us work so well is that we have different schedules, like you working nights and me working days.
Right.
And so we can kind of pick up where the other left off. And if we've got a long run of parts, we can keep that going all day and provide somewhat of a semblance of a real company.
Right. And then, as of now, we both work 4/10, so we have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and that's a huge thing for us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we've already gotten to your background and how you know me. We didn't know each other before Pima too. So it's only been 6 years, 7
years,
something like that.
Yeah.
What part of the business is your favorite?
Probably just like seeing all the parts that come in and seeing where they go, or, trying to figure out where they go. I think it's always kind of fun. You get a drawing or a model and the company and what they're doing, but you don't know exactly what the part's for. So I think it's kind of fun to kind of piece it together and see what it's for, or what it's going to do and how it's going to affect people. And it's kind of interesting too, because you get, we've done work for competing companies.
Yeah.
And they have, similar parts, but they're different. So it's like, I recognize this from another company and what it does. So I'm pretty sure I know what this does now. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting seeing how different companies attack the same problems in very different ways.
And then they end up merging later on anyway. So
right. Yeah, exactly. He says, what parts do you make Dylan do?
All of them. All of them.
I guess that would be kind of concurrent with what parts don't you like about the business?
I don't know. There's, I guess, like the hours, working every weekend, working mornings for me. So like Dylan said, I work nights at my regular job. So I got to be there sometimes early morning if we have deliveries or something coming in. So it's kind of hard to get up early mornings, and that's probably the toughest thing for me. I am a morning person natively, but it's tough sometimes.
Well, like an all day, like I never, when we first started the company, I never understood that. I was always like, well, it shouldn't be a problem. You've got all this time before work. And then I worked briefly at a shop where I was working night shift. Then it wasn't even as late as yours because I was working 5/8.
Right.
And I was like, oh man, I empathize so hard with Brad now.
Like, it's a different thing, man. Not being, a night person, it's not my favorite thing, but I've been doing it for like 6 years now. So it's just what it is.
Yeah. Why is Dylan going full-time before you? And I think we've had a few people ask that.
So honestly, the biggest thing is I am more happy where I work. Yeah, I think the biggest thing. I actually have incredibly good benefits where I work, to the point where it actually pisses Dylan off.
I think it pisses any logical human adult that hears your benefits.
Yeah, let's not go into that. But for the most part, yeah, he is definitely more willing to take that step first. And I'm definitely willing to jump in as well. So once he goes full time and things kind of calm down, we get an idea of our workload and the work coming in, and then our payload, all that stuff. We can go figure out what I can do and when I can come in full time.
Oh yeah, we're going to do that ASAP. That is now the next goal for Protium,
right?
To bring you on full time. How happy are you to have sold the Kitamura?
Well, honestly, I'm pretty happy. I did think that I would be sad to see it go. I'm not a hoarder, but I do like to hold on to my stuff. So I do get an emotional attachment to some things, but it's just been sitting there, and it's a good machine, and it's just a waste. For productions, for somebody else to use it, and for us, taking up a ton of space. So I was really happy to see it go. Honestly, it's another chapter closed, but it was a good one. So
yeah, I felt the same way. Like in the beginning, I think if it had sold immediately, like a year ago, I would have maybe been sad. But like knowing for a year that it was going to be gone eventually,
right?
It was like I had said my goodbyes. I was just ready for the space to be back.
Also, it was if it was for sale for a year, it's not like someone came in and got a smoking deal on it either. So I guess we got what we wanted essentially for it. So I'm pretty happy with the price too.
Yeah, it all worked out pretty well.
So we sold it for what we paid for it.
Yeah, which
worked out fine. So yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, because we got it for a steal. Like I think that I don't know if I've glossed over that in past episodes, but the place we bought it from had a sale fall through weeks or a month before we looked at it, and so they pretty much had machines already coming to fill the place, and we just stole it from them pretty much.
And they were a Haas company. All they had were Haas, and they had many Haas's. But that's all they had. So, a different machine with a different control that they didn't know how to run. So they just wanted it gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm not sure if I've told the story that we found out years later about it either, of the maintenance man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Tell that story.
Okay, so I was talking to somebody who worked at this company years after we bought it. I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And they were like, oh, you bought the Kitamura? I was like, yeah. And they're like, do you know about the guy who got stuck in it? I was like, what are you talking about? Okay, back this up. He goes, yeah. We had a small Asian maintenance guy who would go in and clean the machines at night. And like, thank God he was a tiny guy, because there's not that much room inside that machine. But when we got the machine, we were like, oh, all the door interlocks on the side of the doors were disabled. And we're like, well, whatever. I've seen people do that.
That happens fairly often, yeah.
Yeah. And then this guy proceeds to tell me that he had gone inside to clean the inside of the machine and got locked inside the machining envelope at night. And there was only 1 or 2 other people in the entire plant. And it was not for hours that they heard him screaming to come let him out. And so we were, it was really interesting to hear perspective of our machine from another person who had seen it and heard all of this and actually worked there.
But, yeah, it almost could have been haunted if he died there.
Yeah, almost. Let's see. Ben's next question was automation. What steps have you taken, and are you going to be taking towards this? So what have we taken, and what are we taking in the future?
At Protium, 0 at the moment. Where I work, like I said, we have that E+ on the RoboDrill, and then we have the Flex system, and those are the kind of steps that we're taking there. I haven't really been involved with either of those, but I'm aware of them and how they operate. But Protium, essentially nothing at the moment. Maybe a UR arm down the road, possibly. Like, we don't do much, if at all, any production. So for us, it's not really a big thing. It'd be too much programming of an arm or something for any benefit at the moment.
Yeah. I think that in a high mix, low volume kind of setting, and that's like a super big area that people are focusing on automating right now, but there's not any really good go-to plug and play option for automating that kind of high mix, low volume workflow. Right. So let's see. David Ron asked, in light of Ben's colossal amount of questions, what's your favorite flavor of Gushers?
Of Gushers. Honestly, I don't know if I've had Gushers in probably over 20 years. Do they have a watermelon flavor? Because that's probably fine. Or maybe a cherry. I don't know. I have no idea. Do they even make Gushers still? I don't know.
I assume so, but I felt the same way when I read his question. I was like, man, I don't remember the last time I had a Gusher.
Well, David, I might have to go to the store and get some Gushers, and maybe we'll have an update on that. Maybe I'll get some for the shop, and then Dylan will just plow through them all.
Yeah, just don't get Sour Patch Kids.
As a side note, Dylan loves Sour Patch Kids.
I will never buy them for myself, though.
No,
I don't love them to the point where I'm like, I want them, but you buy them and put
on
them
occasion,
on the desk.
I will buy them, leave them at the shop, and I come in the next day, and it is 3/4 empty.
Yeah, my willpower kind of fades as I get past midnight or so.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. From Instagram, Corey Deegan asked, do you listen to the podcast?
Honestly, no, I don't. I know that, it's probably going to upset a lot of people, but I don't.
You have, though.
I have.
Yeah.
Maybe the first 20 or so I've listened to. And I enjoy it. I just don't have the time to do it. So where I work, which is generally the time that I would be listening to the podcast, it's not ideal for listening to podcasts. I'm a supervisor there, so I have a lot of questions to answer, a lot of things to fix, Kiwas. And so for that reason, I'd be constantly starting and stopping a podcast. If I'm on a road trip or something, I definitely listen to the podcast. And that's probably why I've listened to the 20 or so. Also, half of it is, I've kind of lived half of it. So I am part of the Protium part of it. So
yeah.
I
mean, I usually tell you anything cool or interesting.
Yeah, for sure. You do. You always give me a little synopsis of most of what's going on.
Yeah. And then his other question, which we kind of touched on, was what are your and I unique skills and qualities that help complement each other to run a successful business?
I mean, I have no skills.
Yeah. Okay. That's why. That's why we agreed to go into business together.
No, I mean, my biggest skill is I do sketchy stuff.
You do sketchy stuff. Well, and I think that especially monetarily, and especially more in the beginning, you were always the conservative side of it.
I still am to a degree.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's always nice to have somebody who's got their head in the clouds and maybe doesn't think through things fully, and somebody who is grounded in reality and can be that sounding board for crazy ideas.
Yeah, that's fair. That's actually pretty accurate. So
yeah, I think that's, for me, that's been the best thing. We both are competent machinists. We both have good, strong work ethics. Mm-hmm. I think that those are paramount to running a successful business. But the fact that we come at problems from a very different perspective and can bounce ideas off each other is what I really value about having you as a business partner. Yeah,
and going back to that, his background in aluminum, mine and stainless, we do have different ideas and approaches to things. Mine's slow and low, and his is, rip it and get it. So that's kind of how it is. And then, if we have a different material come in, or, titanium, something different than our usual stuff, we can talk through and get an idea. We had a titanium order that came in probably about a month ago, and we started working on it, immediately broke a drill. And I was like, uh-oh, we only had one drill. It was a carbide drill, as a matter of fact, and it broke. Yeah. All we had were, high-speed tools after that. But, with some of the 304, 316 stuff I ran, I was like, all right, just set it at this and we'll see how it goes. And it made it through the entire run on one drill. And so that was kind of nice. Yeah. Yeah. I was sweating bullets. I was like, man, I need to get this out today. And now I'm going to break a drill in it. And yeah, it was. And we got it. Yeah, we did. Everything worked out. It was great. But I think we scrapped one part. So yeah, not bad. Well, actually, I don't know, because he never gave me back one with a broken drill in it either. So all right, well, maybe not. He might have gotten it out. I don't know. But all right, Sam Wagoneer asked, how do you put up with a guy who poses naked in your machines? Honestly, I try not to run that machine anymore. It's kind of been, I don't know. I was wearing boxers. I covered all the vices with paper towels. I don't know that. I do. I mean, I was there. You're dirtier than the machine is. That's for sure. I can't fight that. No, you cannot. That's fair. If you ever saw us working on a car or a dirty project, I would be covered head to toe in whatever oil is in that machine, and Brad would look like he walked in the shop fresh 10 seconds ago. So actually, going back to Laguna Seca, when you work the corners there, you have to wear white shirt, white pants, stark white. And we work 3 days. We camp out at the racetrack. So, I mean, they have showers there, but, you're not doing laundry or anything. After 3 days, I got there's some stains maybe. Dylan looks like he rolled around in the dirt. I don't even know how he gets so dirty. Like, it doesn't even make sense.
He's not wrong.
He could be there for 10 minutes and then his pants are orange. I don't even know from what.
Yep. Yeah, he's not wrong. That's why I bought a overall after you got one.
Yeah.
I don't even know why you got one. You don't.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I really don't need it, so that's fine.
Let's see. Obsidian Tools asked, why didn't you get in your veto when Dylan sold the perfectly fine kitty? But that,
I think we already covered that. I was ready. It was time. And if someone can get better use out of it, I'm happy to see it go.
Yeah. Yeah. For our workflow, having a pallet changer to do prototypes is just kind of rough.
And it was a good machine. It held tolerances fine. It had a 15K spindle, so it could do plenty of stuff. It was just the biggest bottleneck was the controller, which actually, for a 2001 machine, that controller is amazing. I don't know if there's a better controller out there for that time period. That Yaznak, it could read so far ahead, had no issues ever. There was never a stutter in any program, high-speed machining or not. And we never even used the high-speed mode.
Yeah, there's a whole high-speed card, like an auxiliary card for high-speed, and we never turned it on.
But the biggest bottleneck, like I said, was just the program loading.
Yeah.
And it was, we literally had, 30, 40-minute program load times. And then you find an error or something, you have to repost, and then there goes your night just posting.
Oh, it was the worst. It really was. And now, Ethernet, it's like 5 seconds.
Well, the Speedio, the S700 we have, you literally do nothing. You drag and drop, and it's already on the machine before you can walk over there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts. Like, you would never think that program loading would take that much time out of your work week. But yeah, when the max program load in the kitty was 500K.
It had plenty of space.
Yeah. But
I guess that's not plenty of space, but
plenty.
It had a fair amount of space for its age. It has more than our S2A brother does at the moment.
Right. But loading it in, it was, 200 or 300K would take about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That was kind of rough.
Yeah.
Firmworks asked, how does it feel to be accused of not even existing?
I mean, honestly, it's fine. It's been a joke for, how long has people been asking about me and, where's Brad? Why is he on the podcast? So it's kind of a joke that we've played into.
Yeah. I have a feeling that people are just going to stop listening to the podcast now. Like, we sold the kitty. You've come on. They know you're real. Like,
what's the point now?
Where's the mystery?
Yeah.
He says, on a more serious note, who starts the most projects and doesn't finish them? You or Dylan?
Ooh, that's a good question. We might be tied, honestly.
I think so.
I will say I get farther into my projects than Dylan does. I think we start just about as many. I will go into like the purchasing mode and start, buying things and doing that with, big ambitions like we all do. I don't know. Dylan generally doesn't quite get that far. He has more of a thought process on stuff.
Yeah.
Which, I do a lot of research on things. So it's not saying that I don't think through. It's just I get a little bit farther on my projects before I fizzle out.
Yeah, I go, ooh, shiny, and then I'm on to the next one before it's the buying stage.
I got to have something in my hand.
Yeah. Let's see. TMC makes, what's the hardest part of working with Dylan?
I don't know, man. That's a tough one. Probably his work ethic. Half the time I want to go, let's go get lunch, let's go do something. But no, we got to finish these parts. We got to get this out today, and that might be the hardest part, honestly. Which it's not really a bad thing.
Which is night and day from when we started the business.
It really is. Yeah, I think I'm a little bit more burned out currently. So I'm like, let's take some time off. Let's go grab lunch. These parts can wait, but there's no real bad parts about working with Dylan.
Yeah, and I'd agree working with you. Like it's a good partnership. I think we both lack where the other is strong.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It works out. Which one of you is more relieved that the kitty is gone?
I think Dylan. I think you wanted it gone more than I did. I was like, it's taking space, but it's not a huge deal. Actually, it was kind of huge, but you actively wanted it gone.
Yeah. But now that it's gone, that room though.
Oh yeah, we did some rearranging, and man, I'm in love with the shop again. And then with the addition of the AC, it's a completely different place.
Yeah. Well, and we added 4 lights?
4 lights yesterday.
Yep. And put everything on automatic switches, and I mean it's like daylight bright in there.
Does that count towards automation?
I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, automatic lights.
Yeah. So it's feeling more like a professional shop.
Absolutely.
Zeke Johnson asked, "Does Dylan feed you enough? Does he let you out? Blink 3 times if you need help."
So like I said, I'm the one feeding Dylan generally. No, it's fine. It's all good. Dylan definitely is at the shop more than I am. But yeah, it's been fine.
Yeah. And then his other question, how's the shaper shaping out?
All right. Digging deep there. No, the shaper's doing fine. It's in the corner. It is art is what it is. You can't have all business in a machine shop. You have to have some art.
Yeah.
We have our shelf of fame, all the cool parts that we've made on the shelf. And then you have the shaper, it's nice, shapely to look at,
Well, and to provide context, we bought the shaper as a birthday gift for Brad because he had always wanted one. It was never like, let's buy a shaper and fix it up immediately and start making parts on it.
It's also a tabletop shaper. It's nothing big. It doesn't take up a lot of space. And I did plug it in once and sparks started flying out of it. So that's on the project to-do list.
Yeah. We'll either fix it up or we'll sell it to our old neighbor, Dan. One or the other.
Yeah. I mean, apparently there's a market for them. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
our old neighbor, he was fixing up like saws, table saws and rotary tools from the 50s?
Yeah, a lot of Atlas stuff and things like that.
Yeah, and so he saw our shaper and was immediately watering at the mouth and, very much hinting strong that he would love the shaper if we ever got rid of it. So
actually it kind of does have a little Art Deco, like the cover of it.
Oh yeah.
It kind of does. It actually is pretty good art.
Yeah, I think it would be a really cool piece to have in the shop, like you said, as kind of like an art, functional art piece.
A restored piece, yeah.
Yeah, so one day we'll get there.
One day. Maybe when we're full-time.
Yeah, I was going to say, now that one of us is full or will be full-time, if I'm really bored and I don't have the MR2 engine or something to work on, I can start pulling that thing apart.
Right.
So I skipped a few questions purposefully. Both Ben at Fort Manufacturing asked, what's the next big purchase for the business? Uh-huh. And Obsidian Tools asked, what next machine is in the shop? And I saved it for shop news and new things because...
So it's already been done.
Yeah.
It's already done.
It has.
The payment for the kitty came in 1 week and it was gone the next week.
So I know a lot of people asked on Instagram, they saw the kitty leave and they're like, oh, well, now you got space to fill it with something else. And I think it was right around the time we sold it that we were like, well, maybe we should look at another machine.
And we had a list.
Yeah.
We've always had a list of, this would be a good machine. This would be nice to have, something like that. And the machine that we bought was never on the list.
No, it wasn't.
Oddly enough.
But so reaching real far back, though, the machine we bought, you brought up to me, I think. Or maybe I showed it to you. And
you showed me.
That's what it was, because Easton showed it to me.
Yeah.
So we've been dancing around it. What we bought and will be coming in the next couple of weeks is a Brother F600, which is it's a traveling head in X and Z.
They're high rigidity, high torque machine.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's about 50% heavier than a standard Speedio S700. High torque, 10K spindle, dual contact, really all built around being the most rigid BT30 machine you can make.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting super excited about it. We've started, some of you will have seen on Instagram, we lucked into some secondhand orange 20-inch vices. We started buying all the lights and stuff, and it should be here in the next 1 to 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're prepped. We're ready.
Yeah.
And it should open up a ton of work for us. It should really relieve we have the 2 spindles. We've only been using the 2 brothers mostly for the past year and a half, maybe even longer than that. So now we're going to have 3 spindles. It's kind of the question of, do we keep the TC? Do we turn it into a workhorse for material we don't want to run in the Speedios? So do we sell it and get some more space back and, maybe another car project or 2? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you guys are thinking about stepping into a less expensive Brother, keep your eye out. We may be posting the TC for sale, but we'll let you know. But we realized in talking more and looking at other machines that our biggest bottleneck was having a machine that could both have the storage for larger part programs, have the look ahead for 3D surfacing, all of that stuff, and another Speedio really fit the bill. It's something that we can get up and running, within a day of it being commissioned and making parts. So
and 7 extra pots doesn't hurt either.
Yeah. Well, and then I guess we should talk about the other machine we had thought we wanted and why we kind of...
Right.
So we had both always looked at the Akuma Genos M560V as a possible candidate because we love the bridge style machine. We love the rigidity.
It was well priced.
Yeah, all of that. But we recently went and saw one, and I don't know. It was funny because neither of us really talked to each other while we were looking at it. A customer of ours has one. We got to go kind of look at it and play around with it, and neither of us talked to each other. We didn't influence each other, and we both kind of walked out of there like, I'm not sure that's the machine for us.
We were a bit underwhelmed.
Yeah,
it was. I don't know. I didn't have any expectations going in, but it still didn't meet my expectations. I guess I didn't know I had.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It seemed clunky.
Yeah. Well, and what's weird is it's none of the machining characteristics that I would normally associate with a machine tool purchase. It's insanely rigid. It's, super powerful. It's got some cool user things, but the little things were the things that stood out to both of us as man, this thing's gonna be a pain in the ass to run.
Right.
The chip evacuation kind of seems dismal.
Yeah.
The control was not as user friendly. It was clunky. There was a lot of button presses to do the simplest thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else. Little things, even the doors not being linked. You're banging these two doors.
Yeah. So going from the TC to a Speedio, the TC has independent doors. They're a double door, and they're just banging off each other all the time. Every time you open it, where you turn around and you're sitting on the S700, and that door is so smooth and so nice. It's a totally different experience, and it really changes how you work and how you perceive your machine.
Yeah, it's weird. I would never think that little things like that would bother me.
Right.
But it bothered me so much when I saw it.
It does, yeah.
And really, it was just it came down to the options too on the Akuma. Every little thing is a cost. You want to open up the D windows for every tool. Well, that you got to charge for that. You want wash downs inside. Well, that's a charge for that. You want
crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of parts on that machine that seemed like afterthoughts. So things that didn't quite fit right or just seemed to be bolted on that didn't have the same flow of the machine. So stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing to take away from the rigidity or accuracy because it is both it's insanely rigid.
A genuinely good machine.
Yeah. But for us,
not for us.
It was just not. But also, I sent you that video for the BVM. Doosan just came out with a direct competitor. So I'm kind of hoping that for the next couple of years shows that it's as reliable as some other Doosans. And maybe that'll be a future bridge mill for us. But because I love the idea of a dual column machine, as far as rigidity goes.
Right.
But it just, I don't know, both of us walked out of there and man, I don't want to go into the shop every day and have to run that machine.
Yeah.
It seems like it would be a pain.
I mean, there's going to be a big learning curve where the brother's essentially going to be just plug and play. Where do you have all the posts for it? Everything's set. We understand the controller. So those be, just a step up in rigidity and torque. Well, maybe not torque so much, but rigidity. So, and then, once we run that for, a year or so, we'll get an idea of if that's where we want to continue on.
Yeah. Well, and I think I've talked enough on the podcast. I would love a 5-axis. I know I had said on the podcast, I want to get an M series or something like that. But for the costs that we got this machine, it makes the most sense. We will make money immediately with it.
Absolutely.
And not have to create a new workflow, not have to buy a whole bunch of new work holding.
Well, we already got the devices now. So.
Yeah. But I couldn't pass that up. I mean, when you get stuff for 60% off list, that's tough.
The device is not the machine.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else we can talk about because we're rounding out the episode. What else is so we've got AC.
We have AC.
Is amazing. You've continued to say that you think it's one of the best things.
Honestly, one of the best things we've ever done in the shop is put that mini split in, and it's not even a massive unit. It's a 210 unit, but for 1,000 square feet. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people think that's plenty of space, but in Arizona, where it hits 115, 117 degrees, it's not the biggest. But man, it is a total game changer, just dropping the humidity down. We've had an insane amount of rain this summer, and just the humidity drop just from that AC unit is worth it alone, regardless of the cooling.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And then the other thing we got done today, which is nice, and I'm sure longtime listeners or people who have followed us on Instagram, we finally got our mist collector wired up on the S700, which has been I bought it for the kitty.
Yeah,
a long time ago, before we even had the S700. So we finally got that hooked up because I had tried to install it, 8 months ago?
Yeah, a while ago. I mean, you did try.
Yeah, I got everything hooked up. I got the standoffs put in and everything, and then I tried to put the mist collector on there, and the roof of the S700, where the hole is more or less for the mist collector, is just not rigid enough to support an entire unit kind of dangling on it.
And to be fair, it's not the smallest mist collector either.
No,
it's their mid-range one, the 700 CFM.
Yeah. We I know Yamazon recommends the Mizano or something like that, MZ15, and that one probably fits the machine a little better, and it kind of pushes all the weight to the backside of the enclosure. But for the cost, we got what we needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll post some pictures tomorrow, but it all worked out. It seems like it's working.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be fine. We haven't really ran the machine yet, but with all the through spindle tooling that we have now, all that kind of stuff, it makes leaving the shop, it's gonna be a lot nicer. You don't have that coolant in your nose for the rest of the day going on. So hopefully that'll alleviate some issues with the air quality in the shop.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess circling back to another question that we've already kind of covered, but what do you think is next for Protium? What do you...
I don't know. So
we've got another machine coming.
Yeah, we need to flesh out that new machine, see how things work, and then decide if we want to keep the TC or not. And then I think the biggest thing is just seeing how full-time works, seeing how you react and how the company reacts, and if it's a viable option for both of us, because that's definitely the direction that both of us want to go.
For sure.
Is do full-time for both of us, and then, just build it from there. Machine-wise, we don't really have much on the dream list right now. Like I said, maybe a fifth axis. I honestly think a lathe might be kind of neat, but I don't know if there's a ton of work. I mean, I know there's a ton of work to support it, but I don't know if we want that work or not.
Right.
So things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the biggest thing is, me going, I think I'm 9 weeks out from going full time. And then it's all about just getting you full time, getting the business supporting me adequately, and then moving you into it and figuring out payroll and workers' comp and all that stuff.
Yeah, all the paperwork.
Yeah,
get through the red tape stuff.
That's going to be so much fun.
I guess the next thing might be the work vehicle, the shop vehicle.
Oh yeah, which I've kind of talked about, I think, but why don't you let them know what you had to go through to get to?
So I guess, when was this? 4 weeks ago, a month ago? I found, maybe longer than that. I found a pair of first generation Isuzu Troopers up in Prescott, which is about 3.5 hours away from Tucson, where we live. And they were selling both of them, neither running, of course, which is fine. For, what was it?
$2,500?
$2,300.
Oh, that's right.
$2,300, clean title. So, I got in contact with the guy and I said, I can come check him out, on Friday or Saturday. I don't remember what it was. So I went and picked up my car trailer, and me and my friend drove up to Prescott and checked them out, and they were far cleaner than I could have expected. I knew they were, fairly good looking from the pictures, but seeing them in person, it was like, this is a 1990 and a 1991 model, and there is zero rust. There's barely any dents or dings. They are incredibly clean. And being Arizona vehicles, there's a little bit of paint fade, but for the most part, they are fantastic. So I ended up buying them. We brought them back down. So we have some plans for them. We're going to get one of them running shortly. We actually already bought the parts for it. So we're just going to rip the head off, replace the head gasket, kind of stuff like that, get that running. Then we can have a shop vehicle for picking up materials and whatnot. And then future plans is we would like to do a engine swap.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, that's going to be amazing. Just having a shop vehicle in general, I think, is going to be a real game changer for us.
Right. I mean, I do. So I live on the complete opposite side of town as our material supplier in town. So every time I have to drive down there, it's it's 45 minutes and then 20 minutes back to the shop, which is about halfway in between there. So there's a lot of mileage that we do put on our own vehicles.
For sure. Well, and like you have to borrow a truck usually when we want to get something big. Like we bought a ladder yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, I've got a truck. Let's go get something that we need."
Right. Yeah. Luckily, my parents have 2 trucks, so I can always borrow one most times when I need to.
Yeah, I think it's really going to be just so epic having a shop vehicle.
Big game changer, yeah, for sure. Probably not quite as big as the AC, in my opinion, but
I don't think anything can compete. Like, I don't think the people who live outside of Arizona, maybe California, can understand the quality of life improvement that AC provides.
Right.
For sure.
It's actually even lit a fire under me. Actually went and bought another mini split that I'm going to put in my own bedroom. So I can have a separate AC control just for my bedroom now.
Well, and it wasn't that bad of an install either.
No, honestly, it wasn't. We got a smoking deal. Most of these units are actually brought up from Mexico because we're 80 miles from the border?
Something like that.
We're very close. So there's a lot of products that are actually brought up from Mexico, meant for the Mexican market. And so they used to sell them for cheap. So I think we bought our entire 2-ton unit was $850, which is, if you know anything about mini splits, is a smoking deal. The only downside is that it reads in Celsius. So I guess we're learning Celsius now.
Yeah, there's an upside. There's a silver lining.
Yeah, there's silver lining to the downside. So.
I know what comfortable is now. I don't just see the numbers and I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, 25, 26 degrees, I'm very happy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the shop has been staying at, even running the machines.
Yeah.
I think when I ran the spindle for a really long time on Monday, it got up to like 82 degrees, which is really not
yeah, and the machines I don't think are the biggest heat producers. It's definitely our air compressor.
Yeah, for sure.
And if we could find a way to duct that outside, I think that'd be a massive improvement overall. But the AC's handling, no problem. So
yeah, it's not that bad at all.
Summer's kind of coming to an end here, so
we'll have to see how the heat works.
Yeah, because that shop does get cold. I mean, I know it doesn't get cold for some of you guys, but when you come in there and it's 40 degrees, that's pretty chilly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's at least not comfortable without some preparations ahead of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I round out every episode by asking my guests. I will definitely ask you, what have you been researching this week? Because you always, like we've covered, we both have projects galore. So what's your current set of projects?
I don't know. I have a few. So my main area of interest lately has been homebrewing beer, actually. So I've been doing some beer brewing. We're actually drinking some right now. It's a Belgian triple that I made about a month and a half ago. So I've been doing a lot of research on that and doing some gluten-free beer brewing as well. So I've been dabbling into that, looking at enzymes and all sorts of grains and things like that. Other than that, working on the old Datsun. So doing some research on that. I need to get the shell media blasted and start working on rust repairs.
Yeah, because that's another big thing that happened while we were friends and starting to be business partners is that you were daily driving your 260 for a long time.
Yeah, I was. Did a lot of work to it. Converted it to fuel injection and then ended up rebuilding and swapping in an L2080T, a 2.8 liter turbo engine. And it did fine. Did no problem. I just swapped in a 240SX 5-speed into it. Actually, I bored that out on the Bridgeport at work, oddly enough, to make it fit. So it's been sitting for a few years now, and I definitely need to get back into that.
Yeah, and then what are your plans for it?
So my current plan is a little different than usual. You see a lot of guys doing the RBs or the 2JZs or LSs. Yeah, that's very common. I'm going to actually be putting in a Mercedes engine, an M104. Actually, I already pulled it. Dylan helped me pull it out of the junkyard. It's a 3.2 liter straight six from a 1997 E320, and they are just absurdly strong from what I can tell. So that'll be getting a turbocharge treatment, and then actually I already bought a 6-speed transmission, a BMW. That's what it's a 6GS53BZ, I think. So that'll be going on, and then getting that going.
Yeah, and I get to watch you torque your frame rails with
absolutely
stupid amounts of torque.
Absolutely. Well, I got new ones, so I got to weld those in. That'll be fine.
Yeah, that's going to be a really cool build. I'm looking forward to it. And then also you're finishing up your E30.
I am, yeah. So, I've been daily driving that for 3 years. I did do an engine swap on that. So I originally had the M20. which is, I'm not a fan of that engine. And I ended up buying a 525i with an M50, the non-Vanos, if anyone's interested. And I ended up swapping that engine into it. And I've been driving that for about 2 years. And it's lacking in fuel management. It is a 1992 engine, so it's not the most modern. So I did pick up a M52 328i engine. So I did a full rebuild on that. And I have a new transmission for that. What is that? The 37BZ from a Z4.
Yeah.
Z4 or Z3. One of those. So that's going to be going in, all sorts of fun stuff, and possibly a supercharger. So a lot of stuff to do. Keeps me busy.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what we bonded over initially, was cars and bikes. So it's definitely, I know a lot of people reached out when we posted I posted the video of the kitty leaving, or the pictures, and they were like, what are all those car parts doing in your shop? And it's like, well, it's a shop/storage for projects.
Half are mine, half are his. So
yeah, we've got 4 engines and a bunch of motorcycle tires, and
that's not even all of them. So.
Yeah, I've got all of my stuff for my swap for the MR2 in there. Mm-hmm. So it's, we make use of the walls for storage shelves for project stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this week I've been researching almost nonstop for the last 3 or 4 days lights for the F600 that's coming, because what we thought was an astronomical value that Yamaha charges for lights turns out to be fairly close to what they actually cost.
Pretty modest.
And I was lucky that Dan's Discount Tools had one of the lights on sale, and I made an offer on eBay and got a really good deal on it, and figured all the other stuff out. So we'll go ahead and install that when the machine drops.
It's actually the second one that we bought.
Yeah.
First one being a little small, but it's all right.
That's what I get for not reading the eBay article well enough. It was all the ones that Yamaha usually installs are about 21 inches long, and this one came and was about 14 inches long and 400 or 500 lumens less, something like that. Yeah. So it probably would have been fine, but we want our nice machine to have nice lights. And
yeah, the F600 is a fairly large area. So
yeah, well, now more like the M series, I think it's a very similar cavern.
Yeah, the M200 and M300, they are very deep machines, so there's a lot of shadows and things going on in there if you don't have some very good lighting.
Yeah, so that'll be a good. I finally found everything about the power supply, all that stuff, and so we'll go ahead and the second the machine drops, wire it in, and then have them hook it all up when they install the machine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, otherwise we got to buy some tool holders and look into all that, and then just kind of start making parts on that thing.
Yeah,
it should be quick.
I think it'll be up and running real quick, actually.
Well, that kind of rounds out the episode, but I do have Patreon thank yous from John Working and Ian Reel. Thanks, guys, for joining the Patreon. Really appreciate it. Keeps it, funded, and lets me send off microphones to whoever needs it, schedule all this stuff, and I really appreciate it. And thanks, Brad, for joining me. I really appreciate it. I think everybody's going to be really happy to finally hear from you.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're
I am real. Yeah.
I'm not, schizophrenic or something.
Yeah. If you have any more questions for me, I'd be happy to come back on and answer some of those questions. So just let either of us know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks, guys. We will see you next week.